poison.
Yeah.
Ah.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Popcast on the Rocks, episode 94. We're a podcast that talks about pop culture things that interest us, and sometimes there's whiskey. My name is John, and I am joined, as always, by Andrea.
Hello and happy Friday to you. How's it going?
Yeah, absolutely. Happy Friday to you as well. It is going well. Um, yeah, lots going on this week. It's just the two of us. We're back
I
to just the
know,
two
I
of us here.
know. It's so empty. What are we doing? Just
Yeah.
one on one.
We need to be able to dominate the screen ourselves.
That's
Enough of
right.
this sharing it.
That's
So,
right. Back where we belong.
yep. Well, we've got, yeah, like I said, a lot of news, movie trailers to talk about, that sort of thing. Later, we're going to get spoilery about
Mhm,
Raised by Wolves season 2, episodes
mhm.
1 and 2. That'll be later in the show, so don't have to worry about spoilers until then. Before all of that, drinks. Do we have drink specials, drink holidays to celebrate?
We don't. It's kind of an empty week for anything specific. I checked several different holiday calendars, which should tell you something about, the state of the world that we have multiple, different drink
Yeah.
calendars because we're that excited to celebrate alcohol.
Yeah.
Um, but this week was empty save for just noting the fact that on February 13th, just 2 short days from now, it is both Super Bowl Sunday and it is also the holiday known now as Galentine's Day, from a show we were talking about earlier containing your doppelganger, Parks and Rec.
Okay. Well,
I
I
had
want an
to slip that in
explanation, but
there.
but
I had to slip
but
that in there. I'm so
first,
sorry.
I'll say hello to Mike. He says, "Celebrate that I am here." Indeed, we shall.
Yeah.
Sounds like a
Cheers.
good reason to celebrate.
Ooh,
Oh, revealing the drink. Okay,
that's right.
tell us what your
Cheers.
drink is, and
I have
then yeah,
no
here's
idea.
and then explain this Galentine's. I don't know what this is.
So I have no idea what my drink is. My kind husband made it for me. And he made it Super Bowl themed because, of course, that was one of the holidays that we're celebrating. So he asked
Mhm.
me which team I wanted to win. So he colored my drink the colors of the team that I want to win. And that is any guesses?
Well, if I mean, it depends on the color exactly. I was coming
So
across in camera. I'm
so
hoping
this
it's
is
supposed to be
yellow.
orange.
This is yellow.
Ah,
Yep.
well then the Rams. And we're
Yes.
podcast done.
I know.
Turn it off.
Over.
Shut it down.
Okay, so I had such a hard time with this. So I literally told him 3 different answers because I was like, "I don't really know what I want to happen because I really want the Bengals to win. I like them overall as a team. Like, I know you wanna support your father-in-law, I wanna support my brother-in-law." And then I was just thinking about, like, poor Matthew Stafford and, like, everything he's been through in his football
Oh my
career.
gosh. Yeah, that's what everybody says. They don't give
I
two
do.
F's about this team, but then this one
I
person
know.
and like, but he was this the Bengals haven't won like ever.
I know, I know, I know. Well,
Mike's on my side, it looks like. Poor
technically the
Cincy.
LA
Yeah.
Rams haven't either, if you really think about
Well, yeah,
it.
that's no.
I know, I'm stretching
Like,
there. So,
yep.
yeah, so, I mean, my sympathies could definitely shift back again. I definitely would not be upset if the Bengals won, I would be very excited. But, yeah, it's so hard. Like, if Matthew Stafford wasn't there, it would have been Bengals all the way, but
I hope your drink's
poor
poisoned.
guy.
Not a fatal poison, but like a I'm on the toilet poison now.
Mhm.
How is it? Yeah, how is it?
Ooh, it's good. It's, like, nice and spicy.
I think it's funny. It's like every year the Super Bowl is the opportunity for me to pretend like I care.
Like you care about
And just
football.
yeah. Um but I actually this is the year I care the most. Again, it's for my father-in-law and it's also the year of the tiger. Come on.
Oh, so
The
how perfect
the
would that be then? Yeah.
Yeah. So the Bengals like won on my father-in-law's birthday,
On his birthday?
go
Oh
to
my
the Super
god.
Bowl. Yep.
That's
And then
awesome.
it's been his team forever, and it's the
Mhm.
year of the Tiger. The stars
Well,
are
then
aligning.
yeah.
Come on.
Yeah. Alright, alright. We'll call this orange then. Chris is popping his head in here. "Hey, how dare you?"
Yeah.
He has stained fingers because of me because he was dyeing my garnish. Oh, here we go. My garnish
Nice.
blue. So
All right. Nice. Well, and thank Chris for the delicious spicy drink.
Yes.
Hopefully he can be
Very
back
good.
on the show sometime soon.
Mhm.
Um, it's kind of crazy. There's not really a holiday.
Mhm.
Feel like we should make one. There's got to be something we can do. We'll have it like um movie themed cocktail day. We'll
Ooh,
just like
alright.
let's submit it, to
Alright.
whoever.
Yeah.
So what's this Galentine's before I forget? Let me
Yeah,
move
so
on.
it originated on Parks and Rec, and it was just kind of a I think just kind of a funny bit, that, uh, Leslie Knope, the main character played by Amy Poehler, was doing, because
Mhm.
she had no boyfriend at the time, so she was like, "I don't need to celebrate Valentine's Day. What I like to do is celebrate Galentine's Day, which is the day before Valentine's Day. You get together with like all your
With
best
your
lady
gals.
friends, with your
Okay.
gals. You like go out to brunch, like have some fun, maybe exchange like little small kind of gifty things that are just like, oh, like, our friendship means a lot to me. So,
Sure.
you know, here's a little token of something. So it started there and it really kind of just exploded into an actual thing that people were like, yeah,
Okay.
let's bring this into everyday conversation and let's make this a holiday. So now it's kind of an official unofficial holiday.
Yeah, it's kind of cool, I suppose, because otherwise, if you try to do something like that on Valentine's with just your single friends, maybe you don't have many single friends.
Right.
So
Right.
now you're just gonna feel more alone.
Exactly,
And
like,
then
rubbing salt in the wound there. So
yeah.
now if you have it the day before and it's literally Galentine's Day, I mean, it's pretty cute.
hmm Yeah. I forget what the days are called, but we could do I wouldn't mind something like they do in Japan where they have two separate days, and one, generally
Oh, yeah.
speaking, the man gives the woman a gift and vice versa for one of them. So
Isn't that like
yeah, it's
White Day?
White Day. Yeah, I think
Yeah.
so. hmm
I feel like all
So,
the, like, cute little romantic, slice of life animes that I've watched have involved something, and I think it's White Day.
okay. Yeah. Yep. So, all right. Well, yes. Cheers. I have a rind over matter wheat series ale
Right.
from Bell's. So just keeping it simple.
Mhm.
Um, my husband didn't make me a cocktail, so
He'll get a
all
talking
right.
to from me, wherever and whoever he is.
Yeah. Yep. How's your week been?
Good, good. Very, very busy. Between work and getting prepared for, I've talked about, I'm doing a show next weekend. I've got some other kind of personal research and work that I'm doing in the hopper. So I've been terribly, terribly busy. Haven't gotten
A
the chance to
hopper?
watch in the hopper. Hopper now always makes me think of Stranger Things to just, send
Oh,
us off
okay.
on a
Okay.
wild tangent.
Mhm.
Um, or I'll resist the urge. Um, but yeah, so I've been quite busy. Haven't had a chance to kind of watch too many things. Of course, I watched the first couple of episodes of Raised by Wolves. I did watch another episode of Peacemaker. I really do think it's getting good. Like
Okay.
there's still, some annoying things that I think that are kind of sprinkled in there, but they're really dialing it back. They're definitely dialing it back on the like lewd humor all the time. It's actually getting a little more like substantive, um, and the humor when it's there isn't always like in the toilet, which I appreciate
Okay.
because that was a very hard, I think, slog of an introduction to Peacemaker as we've talked about. So
Mhm.
Just wanted to
Yeah.
throw in, I think it's improving quite a bit.
Okay. I I have to say that with anime, there's certainly plenty of times where it starts out and your protagonist is super obnoxious. It's
Mhm,
terrible. And so it takes some time for that protagonist to grow. And, you know, I guess now usually I don't put up with that. I'm like,
mhm.
no, there's too much to available that I
Yeah,
need to like sit through that. But I mean, it does happen a lot. A lot of
mhm,
times some great shows really only blossom after a while. So
mhm. Yeah, I think Peacemaker just took some time to find some footing, um, but I think, we were when what we were talking about, there were a lot of problems with it early on. I wasn't bothered quite as much by those problems, but I think they were very much there, and I think it was, legit to talk about the fact that both Peacemaker and the team around him had some really annoying qualities, and you can kind of have one and you can kind of have the other, but when you have them both, it's really
right.
grating because who do you even care about? And I think that was a legitimate point that you brought up for certain. But it's definitely getting better, I would say.
Okay. Cool.
So, yep. So, watched another episode of Peacemaker and then really throwing it back. I started watching over the Downton Abbey series. It's on Netflix. I watched it. I'm rewatching it partially because I have to do an English accent for the show I have coming up on Saturday, and I wanted, you know, just kind of a model that I could realistically go off of where it's
Yeah.
I mean, it's not too heavy. Um, there's no like wildly outrageous accents. It's all very like soft and normal. Um,
Hmm.
but higher spoken English, higher
Yeah.
dialect. And it's kind of a good show that I can have on in the background because I've seen it before. So it's one of those things where it's just like, okay, I can just let it like permeate, think about it too hard.
Hmm.
Um, but then also I did realize that fans of the show will know, of course, there was a movie follow-up to the series a couple of years back now. I think it was in 2018 or 2019. And then last year they had announced that they were going to be doing another follow-up movie, which was
Hmm.
supposed to be out Christmas 2021, but it unfortunately got delayed. So I checked on that because I was wondering about when that new timeline was. And it looks like the new Downton Abbey movie is going to be released in May this year, and they just
Oh,
actually
okay.
released a trailer for it. So that is
Oh,
out there now. I
okay.
just found
Theme of
that
the
too.
night.
Among the many trailers we've had released this week, that's
Yeah.
also out there. So,
Okay. Cool. Yeah. I love the idea of going back for a kind of proper English accent
mhm,
because it is a little more subtle. That older Queen's English is not always quite so crazy, and then
mhm,
it's it's more of the the words used
mhm,
than the accent itself. So I love
mhm,
the extra, things that are. I just heard a phrase tonight on someone live streaming. It's an
mhm.
Englishman, clearly with a heavy accent, and I wish for the life of me I could remember it, but I've never heard this saying before. I hope
Okay.
it's common in England for meaning stoned. It was it was a phrase for saying you're stoned, and it was something
Interesting.
something like off my tit.
Oh,
And
okay.
yeah,
I
I
feel
don't
like I
I
I feel like that's sort of like catching at some, dregs of my memory
yeah.
that it sounds vaguely familiar.
So if we have any residents of the UK out there,
Yeah, tell us.
let
Tell
us
us your
know
slang.
cuz I won't bother to look it up. So you get to tell me.
Yeah.
So, okay, well that's cool.
Yeah. I've been enjoying it. Like I said, it's nice to have on in the background, just kind of, every once in a while I'll look up and kind of copy what, a line of dialogue that's being thrown out. So I really think it's about um not overthinking it too hard because once you start thinking about it, you really start overpronouncing and exaggerating, and that's when it sounds terribly unbelievable.
You
So
start to become Kevin Costner.
Yes, yes. Oh boy.
uh, yeah, no, I have ter- I have a run into this issue playing D&D where
Mm,
every character I want to voice just ends up becoming an English accent. So a lot of
mhm.
times I just don't do a voice cuz it's like there's so many people, they're just all going to be English, but I guess it's kind of a way so everybody knows for sure it's not me speaking, it's a character
Right.
speaking. So at
Mhm.
least it's that. Because everything else, like, we're definitely trying to add in some other kind of cultures into my D&D that's kind of difficult. Um, and so I don't know, I struggle with a lot of them other than English. So
Yeah, I
yeah.
completely agree. I had to do a play back in college where I did an Australian accent, and it's so similar, but not. But
Yeah.
for the first few weeks of rehearsal, I would get 2 words out and then I would slip right back into an English accent, and it's not right. I mean,
Hmm.
but I couldn't, and then once I would speak in the English accent, I couldn't force myself out of it to get back to the
Hmm.
Australian. So I'd have to completely stop, speak in my normal voice, and then restart in the Australian accent. It was
Do you have
very
like
frustrating.
common phrases that you try to like for different accents to something that is kind of familiar in your head so you can always say that to get yourself back
Yeah.
on track?
Yeah, I do. I'm not daring to speak them aloud right now because
Yes.
because of course, the second I say I do, I'm gonna, say something and it's completely
Uh-huh.
wrong. But I do. I mean, there were definitely, especially in those early days of rehearsal, there were like a couple of lines where I would just feel like, got this, I nailed this. So I would say
Mhm.
those over and over, and so I knew I could go back to like that as my baseline for uh, getting back into that accent.
Starting a poll right now in the chat. Should Andrea do her accents? Yes or no?
Oh god.
um, yeah,
Oh.
I can't do Australian. When I try to do Australian, I move into Southern all of a sudden.
Mhm. Mhm.
It's very
Yep.
weird.
Another
And then
pitfall for sure.
I can do what I consider a Southern accent, but it's probably a very offensive Southern accent. So, but I do enjoy that one. So
Well, it's
yeah,
it's difficult. Doing accents is difficult because you want to make it clear, but then when you put so much effort into trying to make it clear, you can lean towards the over exaggeration very quickly, and then it just
yeah.
goes off the rails. So,
Well, know that almost no one, likely no one watching your play is going to know whether what you're doing is precisely accurate or not.
true, true. Uh
Likely.
they'll more notice if I slip out of it, so
Yes.
I'm trying to at least get, that baseline of, how do I get back into it if I do happen to slip out, so.
Andrea said a bit too much of a H there. I heard it there. But yeah, I don't know. Well, either way, good luck for sure.
Thank you.
Um, what's this other thing you got? I don't know what this is.
Oh,
Is
that was
this
the book
about
I
aliens traveling to Earth?
I mean, they could be, I haven't gotten there yet.
Oh, okay.
So, it's the book I started last week, it's called Long Way to a Small Angry Planet, um, and it's about, a girl who joins a crew, on a spaceship whose job is to, create wormholes so that,
Oh,
folks can travel from, different parts of the galaxy back and forth quickly. And they sort
yeah.
of like it's nearly this everyday thing that everybody takes for granted, but the actual process of like quote unquote digging these wormholes is
Yeah.
actually pretty dangerous and tricky. Um, but she's joining this crew. She's kind of running from a past. There's all sorts of colorful characters that she's meeting on board who are kind of, you know, we're being introduced to as the readers, and they're introduced to her and kind of helping her along in her journey. So I really like it so far. It's been pretty good. I
Cool.
think the author does a very good job of world building, even though the world is mostly contained to the ship. Like
Right.
I just get the real feeling of being present and
Yeah.
seeing the ship.
Um, as a tangent, and I don't expect like the perfect answer now because I think this would require some thought.
Oh
But
dear.
Yeah, right. What do you think is what show or game or movie or whatever handles long distance space travel the best? Like who has the best light speed, warp drive,
Wow.
faster than light drive, all that sort of thing. Like what technology seems kind of more realistic
Yeah.
or slash most effective or
Mhm. Boy, that is a great question. I mean, truly. Um,
this is a lot of iterations for sure.
yeah, I mean, I'm just kind of running through. I mean, obviously the first things that are the most popular and most popularly accepted, I think are, the forms of travel in things like uh Star Wars and Star Trek. I
Right.
mean,
Mhm.
that's what we're most familiar with. Um Man, I so this isn't the most realistic, but I always thought that this was the most fun. Um, I used to watch Stargate SG-1, and
Mhm.
I really loved that sort of like step through the gate travel. I always thought
Okay.
that was
Yep.
really fun and
Like
interesting.
portals.
Portals,
Just like
yeah.
so you could go someplace very far from a terrestrial
Right.
space to some other one, yeah.
Right. It didn't always seem to be the most logical. But, I
Mhm.
mean, it was never really about the travel anyway, so you didn't really have to, like, explain how it was all
Yeah.
happening, you know?
Yeah.
In the way that you do where
Mhm.
it's like, for Star Wars, you have to, "Okay, we're doing the Kessel Run in 12 parsecs." Like, what does that mean?
Mhm.
How do we gauge what that is and how fast that really is? And we're being introduced to this whole concept through other character reactions and how things are presented, but you have to create that. For Stargate
Yep.
SG-1 you don't. I don't know, I always thought that that was kind of fun, just
Yeah.
the idea of stepping through the portal, kind of a exaggerated stepping through the looking glass kind of
Yeah.
scenario.
No, absolutely. That's kind of like mist. You get
Mhm.
books that are written and you create a and you just touch it and you're in there.
Yep.
Um I I like the kind of deluge of modern take on it where it's about cryo chambers, it's about
Mm,
hibernation. So it's
sure.
really not warping much. It's like, no, this is going to take a lifetime to get where we want, basically,
Mhm.
even at whatever speed. That part's irrelevant. Kind of, it's about the hibernation element of it,
Mhm.
like we see in Alien or something. Otherwise, the first one I thought of when you bringing up how your book and like making it is kind of dangerous, and so I like the idea. I think one of the more practical ones is Cowboy Bebop, where you're
Yeah.
literally constructing like a gate that you
Yes.
would, so this would be similar to Stargate, I guess, except you need a, you know, theoretically you need a point A and a point
Vessel.
B,
Mhm.
and yeah, you're in space and you go, yeah, I don't know,
Mhm.
so
Yeah, it's funny. I mean, there's in this book there's clearly two methods of travel, um, because they have these wormholes that they're creating, but then also the way that this girl arrives to the ship is by being in like a stasis pod.
okay,
And that's kind of the first. There's like a 2 paragraph prologue that, I'm sure is gonna be relevant later, but has nothing to do with our main character. And then we're first introduced to her as she's coming out of, this, like I can't remember exactly what they call it, but, like, that version of cryo sleep where she's,
yeah,
waking up in the pod, and the pod is like, "Oh, we're about to arrive, just hang on a second and we'll be docking," you know,
yep.
I realize you're hungry and, you haven't gone to the bathroom, but just hold on, we're almost there. So,
Hmm.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, wormhole is. I'd like to know more about how the spice enables it in Dune and what that's like. But
Yeah.
I I definitely the only feasible thing for us is some type of wormhole. That is
Mhm.
absolutely the only feasible thing because once people realize, oh, light speed, that's great. But then when things are however many light years away, well, that's you
Mhm.
traveling for like 1,000 years at light speed to get there. And so time may slow down or stop for you when you approach light speed, but
Mhm.
that time is still going to change when you're not coming back to the
Right.
same people, or whatever, in the same place. So yeah, you need a wormhole for sure.
Yep.
Everybody get on it. Let's figure out wormholes.
Well, I'll
So
read this book and tell you if there's any secrets given away.
okay, perfect. Trying to think if I watched any science fiction stuff that I could go off of. I guess I mentioned Dune. I watched the Dune special
Yes.
features that came on my Blu-ray disc.
Mhm.
Yeah, I still bought a disc, right? Um, and Raised by Wolves, of course, as we'll talk about later.
Yes.
A few different animes. So Demon Slayer season 2, episode 10. I just was like basically shaking watching that. It was
Was
so
that the finale
crazy.
episode?
That's this Sunday.
Okay, so that's
So
this
I'm hoping
coming
to
Sunday
watch it
night.
in the
Okay.
morning. Yep. It's a 45-minute season finale. So yeah, getting excited for that. Um, Toilet Bound Hanako-kun is getting better. I wrote episodes 2 and 3. I think I watched another couple or something like that. So that's
Mhm.
that's staying fun. And then My
Such a
Dress Up
great one.
Darling. I was I didn't talk about this last week, did I? This is new for this week. My
No,
Dress
this
Up
seems
Darling.
new. Yeah.
Okay. So I was gonna read the manga, and then I saw there's an anime, so maybe Ashley want to watch it with me. So we're watching that. It's I like the art of it so far. The
Mhm.
premise is I talked about this a little bit on my Ohio Anime morning show. If anybody
Which you
tuned
should
in,
all check out.
but yeah, right. But basically, there is a guy that his family runs a traditional doll shop in Japan, and so
Mhm.
it's very intricate dolls, and they do them all by hand, paint the faces, do the clothes, and all that stuff. This kid is it's not a popular hobby for a young boy to be working on these dolls. Like it's made fun of or whatever as a kid, but it's a passion of his, and so that's what he does. He's not good at doing faces, but he's good at sewing. Well,
Mm.
he's a total outcast, but in school, he ends up meeting someone that is wants to get into cosplay and is like super
Mm.
popular, but like really super into this one character. And
Mhm.
find out that he can sew, and well, this seems like perfect match. So
Mhm.
there we begin our friendship. And there's lots of like awkward teenage sex things or whatever.
Sure.
But it's been really funny so far. And
Okay. That
again, I
sounds
like
pretty
the art a
cute.
lot. Yeah. Yeah. It's I had mentioned because there's a news story going around that these a number of these dolls have been really selling out now.
Oh, sure.
Because of the show, more people have been buying the manga and then in turn looking into these dolls, this traditional kind
Sure.
of doll. And so
Look
yep.
at that marketing ploy.
Yeah,
Several layers
right?
deep there. Yeah.
Yeah. Big Hina doll companies they produce this. Um, but yeah.
Well, if they did,
So
hats off. I mean,
I
smart
know,
move.
right? Yep. So yeah, then a bunch of other manga and stuff, and then watched the UFC from Saturday, and that was a really good fight card setup. So
Okay.
yeah, that's been about my week, along with like absorbing the other news that comes out, gaming news and all that kind of thing.
Yeah. Oh
Um,
boy.
you found a fun story right before we went live. Why don't you
Uh
drop
fun
that bomb?
in yeah, fun in quotes there, I'm going to say. So yeah, so just before we went live, I was, scrolling through the old Twitter feed and just found out Netflix dropped the bomb that they're dropping all of their Marvel content from their streaming services next month. The story I read didn't have an exact date that it was going to be next month sometime, so I don't know if on Netflix it'll say when you go to the show or not when it's leaving, but yeah, watch it all up because it's going to be gone. No word yet on whether or not Disney is going to be offering it on their streaming service or if they're just going to kind of
Yeah.
put it away because they own the rights but not, obviously didn't produce the content of those particular shows. I don't
Doesn't it
know.
seem strange? Like it still seems like a win-win for kind of everyone I guess
Yeah.
they must feel like it would hurt Marvel more than it's benefiting them.
Yeah, I mean, I don't like I said, I don't know for certain that they're not gonna offer those shows, on Disney Plus. Um, I mean, they certainly seem to be willing to interact with those worlds without, trying to give too much
Yeah.
away as a certain character from
I
one
don't
series made an appearance
yeah.
on Hawkeye. I don't think I'm giving too much away there. Um, but so I mean, they're willing to like acknowledge it, and of course, we had that news that they officially acknowledged Charlie Cox as Daredevil should he make an appearance, in any future Disney properties.
Well, not
Um,
should he even. Charlie Cox teased that this might be the next 10 years of his life.
when did he do that?
Yeah, that was
Was that
this
around
week
the
too.
same time? Or the oh, no, it
Uh,
was this week. Okay, alright, so I
yeah.
didn't, like, totally miss it then. Okay. So
Yeah,
tell
no,
me
he said
more.
next time you said next time you see me, that might be the beginning of the next decade of my life. So like
Ooh,
I think, which
I
makes
like
sense.
it.
Any of these people that get involved, you kind of have
Mhm.
to expect that if as long as it goes relatively well, you're going to be
Right.
there for a while. And so yeah, I think it's gearing up to be involved.
So, yeah, so I'm not really sure, with that news, I mean, is Disney gonna say, people need to know who these people are. So, why not offer it? Or is it just going to be forget all that? I mean, we're carrying over the character, but we want to introduce them into our universe our way. I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, I wouldn't
Uh,
take a chance on it. If you want to see those properties, I'd watch them now, before they
mhm.
go away from Netflix because who knows. But
I'm going to place my bet that they're just going to go away. My backup would be that if Marvel went to them with a big enough check, they will move them and put them on Hulu.
sure. I mean, it is their kind of sister platform
Yeah, because they're too violent
for
apparently
Disney.
for what they're doing, yeah, on their regular streaming service. So they would move it to Hulu if but they would have to buy that, and it would be weird to see a Netflix logo. I mean, that can happen, but usually it's just when a company goes out of business,
Right.
then it changes hands like that.
Right.
But
Or, shows get picked up by different, uh,
yeah, and new stuff is
platforms.
produced.
Exactly. So
Yeah.
but I don't feel that that would be the way that they're going.
Mm-mm.
You know what I mean? And like any new content that they would produce, I don't think would be a continuation. It would be something
Right.
separate.
Yep.
So, yeah, very, very strange scenario. Not sure what's going to happen. So I would just repeat, watch it now,
Yep.
which is what I'm planning
Yep.
to do. I'm gonna
All
hurry
right.
up and get my butt moving so I can see everything before it goes.
That's exciting. We'll have a chat about that when you're all done.
Yeah, we should.
Switching um feet here, switching gears. That's a better one. Shifting gears here to Nintendo, to video games. Um
I don't know. I like switching feet.
yeah.
It's
I mean,
a little more
in
colloquial.
it's like in martial arts, switch your stance, switch your
Switch
feet
your
around.
feet.
And like,
There you go.
yeah,
See,
oh,
that's
yeah,
that's a saying from your lived experience there.
yeah, right. um, Nintendo finally had a Nintendo Direct, about a 40-minute one, and like I don't need to go over everything that was in it.
Mhm.
Suffice to say, I think most people enjoyed it.
Mhm.
Did you get to see any of it, or some highlights or anything like that?
I did get to see some highlights, but I did not tune in to the full presentation, so I didn't see everything. I'm sure.
Sure. Well, what I will say that I am excited for is one, I cannot believe Nintendo did what wanted them to do
Mhm.
and thought they should do. They're actually doing it. So a lot of people wanted Mario Kart 9 because
Mhm.
Mario Kart 8 is a very old game. But
Mhm.
I'm like, you have this new online service. People are complaining it's too overpriced. I'm like, it's not going to be overpriced. If they keep adding DLC, they add things to it,
Right.
and so they're adding new Mario Kart tracks. There's
Mhm.
6 waves of 8 courses. They're remastering old tracks from previous games and stuff like that. They're going to release them. all throughout this year and into 2023. So, and if you have the online subscription with the plus pack or whatever that's in there, you're good to go. You'll
Yep.
get these. And yeah, this is all I want. This is what I want from Smash too. It's like, again, it's one of those things. Mario Kart 8 is so good, so complete. I know they'll do a 9. That's fine, but just build on this great game you have already.
Mhm.
Improve your online infrastructure, release new courses. They could even release a double dash mode for it, or something like that. That'd be cool. But yeah, I am excited about that. To continue sounding like a normie gamer, I am also very excited about the Nintendo Switch Sports. So it's like basically the new Wii Sports,
Oh, yeah, yeah.
but yeah, so it's gonna be bowling and sword fighting
Yep,
and all that sort of thing, badminton, golf coming this fall. So
yep.
just both these things, I'm ready for a party. Like we're gonna play all these things. It's gonna be great.
It
So,
is.
um, did you see anything else that? I mean, I have a few of things that I'm excited for, but
I
again, that
did I did see something that I was really excited about, and now I cannot remember what it was.
I mean, Kirby looks cool. Kirby looks fun. Um, Portal, for people that haven't played Portal, maybe younger people on Switch that not have been exposed to Portal. There's a
Mhm.
Portal Companion Edition. Go ahead and pick that up. That's going to be
Yep.
awesome. A lot of people are excited for the Chrono Cross remaster. Mario Strikers. I kind of want to play that actually.
Mhm.
Soccer, basically.
So I'm looking at that was coming out right around your and Chris's birthday.
Oh, Chrono Cross remaster is April 7th.
Yes.
Um, but
Something else is
I
coming out
don't
too,
know when
though.
else.
I
And
did see
then
Chrono
the
Cross looks
Switch
cool.
Sports is April 29th.
Yep.
But yeah, I thought they
Mm,
had a mix for everybody. They had a lot
mhm.
of JRPGs again in here. And a lot of stuff they showed, they really did stick to mostly
Mhm.
this year and the first half of this year. So good showing.
Oh, I saw Demon Slayer in there too.
Yes. I normally don't put any stock in the like other things made into kind of the other just the same way as like video
Yeah.
games made into movies or whatever. When a show is made into a video game, it's usually just something slapped together.
Right. Well, I remember we were talking about that with Guardians of the Galaxy and how terrible that looked, and then somehow
Yeah,
that like won an award,
completely. Yeah,
completely like turned around. So I mean, maybe.
absolutely. It can definitely not be that way. Like Spider-Man games are great.
Yep.
So
But it is
absolutely
it is definitely something that
the
gives me
norm.
pause.
Yeah.
It's either like you said, either way it goes, you're kind of like, okay,
Yep. Well, if you think of what this
Star
game is that
Wars.
really peaked. Oh, Force Unleashed.
Yeah, that's what I was like. How fitting that something Star Wars related came out near John's birthday. Even though I know you're, like, tired of Star Wars right now. It
Yeah,
wasn't yeah,
it's
it wasn't that I was like, "Oh my god, it's the game." I was just like, "Oh, that's funny."
mhm. Well, time is to tell. I said I'm done with Star Wars. Alan said, "No way, you'll be back." And
You will be back.
I have to say, I've gotten a lot of peer pressure from Pete to continue watching Book of Boba Fett,
Oh,
and I
okay.
have not. So it's kind of okay. I can hear all the spoilers, and that doesn't matter. It's fine. So,
There is something
um,
freeing about not caring anymore. When you're just like,
yeah,
"Yeah, whatever. That's a
yeah.
spoiler.
There's
It's
there's a
happening."
lot of there's a lot of stuff in the world that a person can spend their time on, and you don't have to. You can be pickier. You don't have to,
Mhm.
you know,
Yeah,
consume everything.
I still remember, how absolutely ripped to shreds I got on social media, um, when I posted a spoiler about The Walking Dead. And
Mm.
I mean, this has been a number of years, so I'm not gonna like spoil it. I mean, I will, but I don't think I'm
No one
spoiling it.
cares
So
now, most
I hope no
likely,
one
but
cares. It's early Walking Dead. I posted about the character that shared my name, Andrea, dying.
mm,
Um, and, just made like a joke about it,
Uh-huh.
"Bye, y'all. Thanks for the memories, blah, blah, blah." And, and I didn't even post it the same night. I waited like 2 days and was like, I think everybody, a fair number of people
The
have
people
probably
that
watched it.
care,
But,
well, wouldn't know what
oh,
you're talking about.
yeah, but whoa, man, did I just get ripped a new one, and I was like,
It
"That's it for
happens,
me. I'm
yeah.
never doing anything like that again," because clearly
Mhm,
people care a lot, and waiting
mhm,
2 days is not enough. So,
mhm. I mean, yeah, if I'm worried about something, I avoid social media like the
yep,
plague now, you
yep,
know? And then those are my happiest days anyways, so,
right.
um
Kinda tells us something a little bit
yeah.
sadly there.
Uh, I get joy from memes, I guess, but,
Mhm,
so yeah. Okay, yeah, so we kind of, like, veered into talking television territory.
mhm,
So we have our first, I don't know if I wanna say proper or real look, something more
yeah,
substantive,
mhm,
for the Amazon Lord of the Rings show, Rings of Power,
mhm,
courtesy of Vanity Fair. We
mhm.
got, a write-up, we've had posters the other week, and then from this, a number of screenshots and different cast shares and stuff like that.
Yeah, I believe they
So
also, sorry to barge in. I think Vanity Fair also hosted, whatever Twitter's version of like a podcast is, that like
oh,
listening
okay,
thing. They
okay,
hosted something and had some interviews with production staff. Um, I don't know if any cast were on. I didn't listen long enough to
okay.
know that, but I mean, they were kind of going over this article and getting a little bit more
Yep,
like, let's chat about it. So.
sure.
We've gotten a lot of content is basically what I'm
Well,
trying to add.
this is your baby, so I'll let
Mhm.
you, take it away. What do you think from the first reveal, first meaningful reveal?
Whew, man, I am all over the place on this. Um, I I was pleased to see, I'll say right off the bat, I was pleased to see that Vanity Fair was going through kind of, the production and how these two showrunners who are relatively new in terms of, actually running the show, not new
Yeah,
to show business, are and kind of what their method was and what their approach was. And they did right off the bat say how they had already watched the first 3 episodes that were already finished. I mean, mostly finished and ready for, you know, mm, production and ready to go, and they
interesting.
were really excited about it. They slipped that in there. It's not, a standalone sentence. It's not like a big announcement. They kinda just threw it in there, and I read it, was just like, "Wow, okay." Obviously Vanity Fair is gonna be giving them glowing reviews. I have no idea if there's any bias there, if there's any, ties of anything to Amazon. I would hope not, so that, I can put real stock and credence into them saying, "We've watched the first 3 and it's really good, it's really
Oh,
gripping."
Vanity Fair said that? They've seen the
Yes,
first 3? Oh, okay,
yes.
okay,
Yeah,
okay,
not the showrunners. I mean, they've obviously
okay.
seen everything they've
Well,
done.
so that was what I was confused. I was like, so wait, the showrunners, like, came on late or something? So
Yeah.
things were already going and then okay, I
Oof,
gotcha.
that would be rough. I would be terrified if that was the story.
Yeah,
Replacing
right?
showrunners midway through. They do talk about replacing cast members. They do talk about replacing their lead Tolkien
Elrond?
scholar.
Oh,
Yeah, they
yes.
yep, who kind of like blabbed a little bit of secret, nothing terrible, but enough to get him thrown off the project. Um, so
I
yeah,
heard he's
they've been
pretty infamous in terms of Tolkien scholars. He's pretty renowned.
yeah, yeah, he is. So that was obviously a big move, but I mean, they, I think, wanted to show everybody that if you talk, we're coming for you.
I
We want
guess,
to keep
yeah.
this under a lock and key, and they've done it. I mean, we really haven't seen much of anything other than what Amazon has allowed us to glimpse before. Um,
Yep.
we've known nothing. I mean, the whole casting process was a surprise to us. What sounds like it was a surprise to the actors as well. They didn't even know who they were going to be cast as when they were called in. So, yeah. I was really excited reading this article. It's hard not to feel sucked in, even though I still have my reservations about many things, including, casting actors as, well-known characters' younger selves. I really feel like I'm gonna have a hard time with it. But by the same token, they also talked about a couple of new characters, um, both from Tolkien's mythology, who we just haven't seen on the screen before because we've been talking about a different age, and then also new characters who are original characters who are going to be part of this. And I mean, it makes me nervous. Um, you know, I am certainly someone who has enjoyed exploring much of Tolkien's worlds, and his world building. Um, Original characters are always, a wrench, and it's, the fly in the ointment. It's God, why is this necessary? I'm hoping this series is going to show me why it's necessary, but I can't say that I'm pleased off the bat to hear that they have a couple of them.
So is tell me if I'm wrong, but it
Mhm.
seems like this is based on a few chapters at the end of the Lord of the Ring, or the end of the Return of the King. So, like, it's about the Second Age, but
Mhm.
it's a lot of what this is based on is there's not a lot written on it. So it's not particularly precise. Like a lot of people want to do the Silmarillion because there's a
Yeah.
lot there, but they can't do the Silmarillion or something like that. And
So,
so
yeah.
they have this, but it's
So
kind of a lot to fill in
yeah, so
potentially.
this is actually pieced somewhat from the Silmarillion. Because it's, pre Lord of the Rings, um, the Second Age, where we're just getting to those histories that Tolkien has taken us into of how are we forging the rings of power. And so some of that does come from the Silmarillion. The Silmarillion, I mean, spans like thousands and thousands and thousands of years. So there's absolutely no way that you could um, tackle that book ever as a whole. You would have to take pieces, and even then, Tolkien is just doing a lot of, you know, this is how the elves came to be. This is the story of their first journey. On Middle Earth and stuff like that. So it's not necessarily like telling stories that would grip you on the screen anyway. But some of this does come from those histories because we are seeing the later parts of the Silmarillion in there, although not a lot. This also comes from, oh yeah, Alan saying we're going to see the story of Celebrimbor. Um, uh, he's not the shipbuilder, is he? I always worry that I'm confusing him with another sea name. There's so many sea names.
Hmm.
He forged the Elven rings. I think Sindar is the shipwright that I'm thinking of. Yeah. Anyway, I'm getting lost in my own mythology here. But yeah, so pieces of this are coming from the Silmarillion. Um,
Okay. Yeah. I mean, it just seems like to me the show is starting off on the wrong foot. I think that the hopeful thing is they're clearly investing a lot of money.
mhm.
I think they broke down in, I think it was the Vanity Fair article. I forget
Mhm.
what I read in there and what I read elsewhere now, but that, like, in comparison to Wheel of Time budget that Amazon also did, this is like 100 million an episode or
Yeah.
something, like
Mhm.
an insane amount of money. And whereas I think they spent 80 million on all of Wheel of Time season one. So they're going all in for sure
Mhm.
on this. Um,
Well,
I
and I
think
mean,
that
not all of that money is going to special effects. Like I was reading in the
no.
article, it's like we're building the actual cities and locations, and much as
Hmm.
Peter Jackson did when he built like Hobbiton. He's building up the
Yep.
Shire. They're investing a lot of money there, so they're clearly thinking we're going to be here for a while. So that's
Yep.
another element of gamble to that.
Yep. I think so. probably should have like put it down into something more specific and
Mhm.
precise. But I think there's three things that I think they're starting off on the wrong way here. Because so
Mhm.
my positive is that they're clearly throwing everything into this. They
Yeah.
clearly are spending a lot of money, so it should be high production value.
Mhm.
The where it's going wrong, I think one is they have questionable casting choices that if you look around the internet, people are very mixed about. And that's
Mhm.
both from new cast members and from or new characters that are invented and also characters that are known. I think that it's it's been like how do you replace Hugo Weaving, you're right? I mean, I think that's part of your problem,
How do you
but
replace
then
Kate
you replace
Blanchett?
him. Yeah, right. It takes it, so it's a difficult task to do, but it's still you're spending all this money. You couldn't get them and you couldn't de-age them. So I think that's an issue. So new and old casting choices.
Mhm.
Two, in Vanity Fair and then subsequent articles, they preemptively take the opportunity to understand there's going to be backlash and pre-attack people that are going to have that backlash.
Mhm.
So I never think that's a good look for a company. Have confidence in your product, talk about it, be proud about it, or whatever. You don't need to go all the way and like gaslight people that are going to potentially have issues with whatever you're making.
Sure.
And then the third thing would be the um shoot, what was my third thing? That's why I said I should have wrote them down. Oh, it's the time we're dealing with here. They mention how the vast amount of time that what they're covering is talking about, and
Mhm.
how so much is going to have to be changed because how do we make a season that covers such an expanse of time and make it coherent and make characters you care about and all the stuff that you can see them move and flow and stuff like that, which makes sense, but is again what should bring people pause. Like, well, maybe this isn't right to adapt then into this,
Mhm.
because we kind of got that with the Foundation on Apple TV Plus. Whereas I, as a unknown, unknown to the property, was enjoying what I was seeing mostly.
Mhm.
But when I talked to friend Tony that very much loves the book, when it first was announced, he's like, well, how are they going to do this? Because it's not really about any characters, it's about the equation, it's about humanity and what happens over the stretches of time and how this all can like uh you know and so how are you going to do this?
Mhm.
And ultimately when you watch, he's like, yeah, they couldn't do it. It didn't.
Yeah.
It's so different. It's just like not it's not Foundation. It's just not. So that's what I'm worried about here. Those are my three things I think where they're having problems getting started here. That doesn't mean it's not going to be good, but it's not looking good for people that are care about the source content.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah, I can't disagree with you on any of those points. Those are definitely worrisome points for me. Um, I already stated I get nervous anytime an original character is introduced into something, especially something so beloved. Um, you're really going to have to justify why that was necessary.
mhm,
And I always have a hard time when original characters kind of take over something or become a larger part of something that I don't,
right.
I don't see them in. Um, right away the Vanity Fair article was talking about um, our main girl Galadriel um being adrift at sea with, a totally original character like Hallbrand or something, who's a man running from his past, which is like the most generic, lame
Right.
description ever. I hate that. So silly. And I was just immediately had my hackles up, you know. It's like, who is
Mhm,
this guy? Why is he with Galadriel? Like what importance is he gonna have? Is there gonna be like some shoehorned in like I was immediately spinning tales in my head about how all these things were going to go, how upset I was going to be about them. Not the best way to approach the series. I should give it a chance. I will give it a chance. Um but yeah, it's not something I, as a fan of Lord of the Rings, I'm particularly excited about.
Yeah, I
So
know what you mean because like, I'm building my D&D world. Obviously there's all kinds of characters in there, but there's like central characters and then there's auxiliary characters and then just like people in the street. And so obviously if you have something that is spans a lot of time and it's not particularly detailed, so you're now going to fill in the detail, you're going to have to invent some new characters. But what seems to happen a lot is the existing characters don't fit the kind of story they want to tell. So then they
mhm,
have to invent new characters that we can relate to or we go on the ride with, as
mhm,
opposed to the characters that are actually were actually there. If
right.
you need troops and you need a lieutenant that's just not in the books, you can have a lieutenant, but it's not about him. He's just there and he's a part of it and you have conversations and stuff, but you're following someone that is a central character. And so
Right.
often it's like with Peacemaker, you know, okay, Peacemaker is the central character, but who we get to empathize with and like put in her shoes a little more, or we can relate to, she's the nicer one, is the made up one. Is the
Mhm,
one that was never there to begin with. And so
mhm,
I see that exact kind of thing coming here. Like you say, it's like we're gonna have Elrond, we're gonna have Galadriel, we're gonna have a lot of familiar characters. But then are they gonna be the touchstones of the show?
right.
Are they gonna be the important driving things in this? And or are we gonna have some other person, in every city that is actually our anchor, and then they
Mhm,
gets to interact with the known characters.
mhm.
I don't know.
Which which can work, I mean, there's nothing to say that it can't, but that's a seriously delicate line to tread, especially if you say, like, if we're traveling between different locations and in each location we have the new character that who's kind of our audience stand-in. They get to
Yeah,
introduce us, and they're our stand-in to introduce us to the world. I don't want that. I'm
right.
willing to overlook, you know, special circumstance here or there, if there's really if there's really no other way to do it, if the writers do it well, sure. But yeah, I don't need a whole pack of new characters, especially because what they're already doing, condensing so much action into, this shorter time frame and making things happen all at once. Well, then you have all the stories. You have all the action already. I don't need you to make
Yeah,
up, I mean, some of course must be tied together. Again, I'm not willing to, or I'm not unwilling to say it can't be at all. But if you've already had this discussion of we're gonna condense these storylines so we can have, connected things happen and not have to jump 200 years into the next, well then
yep.
by God, tell those stories.
Yeah, and can't we is it wrong to focus on a more narrow slice of time? Isn't there enough that could happen in a smaller, or is it too grand that we must tell it all?
Yeah. Yeah, I obviously I'm not the showrunner and I don't have the answer to that question. But
I mean, I think of my D&D world. Like my
sure.
continent has a history. Well, there's there's different wars and different events that happen. Well, about 100 years ago there was a specific war. Well, why do I have to tell the entire history of the continent in a show, which is going to include characters coming and going because they're not involved in all parts of it? Why can't I tell about this war,
Sure.
this occasion, this coup that took place, and have that be a thing? And then the next season can be a different tale or whatever, or anything.
Yeah, I mean, that's certainly a tack that they could have taken. There are plenty of shows out there that you know, focus on different storylines from season to season. I mean, obviously, we have things like Doctor Who, I
Yep.
mean, that's not season to season necessarily, but they do like reinvent the wheel every couple of seasons. Um, Certainly could have taken that tack. Obviously, I'm thinking of things like, um, oh gosh, Miracle Workers, which has the same
Oh,
cast but
right.
tells like wildly
Yeah.
different stories.
Yep.
Um, you could do some version of that or, kind of scrap it all together and just, entirely new story this time. Obviously, you have things like American Horror Story where
Yep.
again, you have wildly different stories being told between seasons. I don't know. I'm not really sure if they've just thought it out through one season, or they're really are gaming it out for however many seasons they hope to have. I'm not sure. But
Yep.
yeah, it's another worrisome thing for sure. Um oh gosh, what else was I going to say? Oh, yeah, so the other thing I was a little bit worried about after the article, um they were talking about Galadriel's role, which I was very happy with because of course I'm very interested. And they
Hmm.
were like, "Oh, it's going to be, after, the original um dark power Melkor has been defeated and Sauron's vanished and it's supposed to be a time of peace, but Galadriel feels like, oh, it's, there's something not right here. I've got to go figure it out. Feels like maybe, something's coming up." I was like, wow, that's very Lord of the Rings. And I hope it's in a good way. And I hope it's different from Lord of the Rings, the movie
Hmm.
trilogy and the Hobbit trilogy, because there
Right.
was that sort of like, we sense that power is massing and we have to go find out what it is. And I just don't
Right.
really want repeat exploration,
Yeah.
when we're all talking about Star Wars and, you know, um A New Hope and my gosh,
The
Seven.
Force Awakens.
Force Awakens, thank you.
Yeah.
It's kind of
A
real
repeat.
similar. Kind of
Yep.
a repeat there. I don't want that either. Do I want the feel of the world? Do I want, to be back into gripping with, Sauron rising to power and what does that mean? Sure. But do I want it told in a very different way from the original movie trilogy? Absolutely I do.
Right.
So, I don't another concerning element that kind of came up for me in reading the article.
Yep. Yep. Well, I don't know. Call me call me a crazy person, I guess, but I loved inventing my fantasy world. I think
Mhm.
someone else would too. You could just do that and make something really awesome
Mhm.
that you're inspired by Lord of the Rings, and then you wouldn't have any of this discussion. None of it wouldn't be there.
It's
So,
hard. It's hard because, you know, as a person who loves this so much, you do yearn for more.
mhm.
But how do you balance that yearning for more with the very real and tangible fear that someone who is saying, "Okay, I'm answering the call, I'm taking up the challenge," that same person is also going to ruin what's already been
Yeah.
done so well. It
Yeah.
there's no perfect answer. It's a rock and a hard place, and we'll see where Amazon falls on this. But it's a huge
Yeah.
gamble either way.
Yep.
It's brave, it's a huge gamble, we'll
Absolutely.
see.
Well, we're going to get even more of a look at this coming
Yeah,
up soon, it looks like,
Super Bowl
as
Sunday.
a teaser trailer. Yep. During the
Mhm.
Super Bowl. So that's nice. We'll
Ready.
have one more thing. Yep.
I'll be glued. I'll be
Um,
glued for sure.
which, at least on this one, it appears so far that they're not pre-releasing it, because this is always my thing. It's like, why are you putting all these things out for us to then see it at the you? I have no incentive now.
I
The
know.
trailer comes on, I'll go get a snack because I already saw it.
Yep. Yep.
Why? Do the thing, that the announcements on social media during the game, it's going to be this reveal. Don't
Show me
drop it
a
3 days
picture.
early.
Yeah. Yeah, show me a, like, frame, you know what I mean? Show me a
Yeah,
still, show me a
right.
picture, like, get me excited, like, one
Right.
cool shot to, like, whet my appetite. Keep me waiting till the
Mhm.
Super Bowl.
Yep. I remember seeing one of the Matrix trailers during the Super Bowl. I was like,
Mhm.
"Yes, wow, look at that."
Mhm.
And,
Yep.
so yeah, they ruin all the fun. Speaking of, I think the next one, the DC trailer, which
Yeah.
is kind of an odd one because it's just promoting the year of DC. So it's promoting all their movies that are coming up
Well, and
in one thing.
Didn't wasn't it strange that it was like the year of DC, all our movies, 4 movies. I don't know, it just
That wasn't enough for you, Andrea?
it just felt so weird. It felt so like all the movies, all the DC, and then there were only 4 titles, and I was just like,
Okay.
it was a little strange to phrase it this way. It could have just been
Okay.
like, you know, DC in 20, you could have just said DC in 2022 or, coming this next year. I don't know. It felt like they'd oversold something and I was looking for more movies.
Okay. Okay. It was a well cut ad.
It
But
was.
again, there'll be no surprise because I saw it now. So, um, but yeah, still just waiting for Batman. That's the big one.
Mhm.
So,
I have to say,
um,
while we're on this subject, I am very excited because The Rock will be making a special Super Bowl appearance.
what?
Yes, yes, he
He
announced it, and
announcing his run for president
he could be.
during the Super Bowl.
He could be. That would certainly be a surprise,
It would be a
way
surprise.
to
Yep.
keep that under wraps until the Super Bowl. He is gonna be making a special appearance, and I believe he said he was gonna be bringing a new look at Black Adam. Do I
Oh.
know that that's not related to this trailer? I do not. It's not
Oh,
I obviously
okay.
don't know if it's
He could be
it's
like introducing this.
exactly, I don't know, or it could be, something standalone for Black Adam, I don't know.
I'm trying to find this Robert Pattinson thing I saw.
Oh, is it about the emo
Um,
comics
yes,
for sad
yes,
people?
yes. Uh,
Uh, it really made me wanna, like, read that whole interview to be
the
like,
whole interview.
how is this, quote in some context? Like, is it really
Right.
the way it sounds?
Yep. uh, so, I don't know if it's going to be at the Super Bowl or not, but they
Mhm.
dropped a Jurassic World trailer, Jurassic
I
World
imagine it is.
Dominion. Yeah. Um, I thought it looked cool, I guess. It's got the original cast back.
Mhm. Yes. Yes, Sam Neill is back, Laura Dern's back, that's really fun. Um, I find that I liked, the portions of the movie when they're back on the, island far more compelling than running through streets and having dinosaurs out in the real world. I don't know why. There's something about that
I
that always feels
Yes,
off.
I agree.
Just
I
not
agree. I
not as well
completely
done.
because it's like The Lost World. I love that movie despite its flaws, but I
Mhm.
kind of like whatever by the ending because
Yes.
they're coming into San Diego there and stuff. I just don't care anymore.
Yeah,
So,
it just doesn't feel it somehow feels like the magic of it is lost. Like you believe that you're like in a place where dinosaurs exist and somehow
yep,
seeing them just like on the streets is just like, "Oh,
sure.
yeah."
I I love Jurassic Park.
Mhm.
Big fan of Jurassic Park.
Mhm.
And I see a lot of good in a lot of them. Jurassic World is kind of a mixed bag for me.
Mhm.
But part of the issue that seems to be getting a little more tough to swallow is so part of the reason I don't like them in a metropolis area or a modern setting is they're not really the same threat. When
Mhm.
when you're in the wilderness, you're in their
Mhm.
territory. You are no longer the apex predator when you have like no resources and you're in some place you don't know and it's rain's pouring down on you. Then it's an amazing story of man versus nature.
Mhm.
When you put it in the streets of some place, the National Guard just gets rolled in and
Right.
all the dinosaurs are killed.
Right.
Like
It's
that's not
diminished. The threat is
yeah.
diminished. Yeah.
And so it's unrealistic to have all these. I think they show it in the trailer. They're flying a plane, and for some reason, the pterodon is going to attack the plane, rip it apart, and they're going to crash land. It's just I know they want to sell this idea, kind of that, and Jeff Goldblum states it in. I think his character does in the trailer, or maybe it's Sam Neill. I don't know, but about how we are. We're not in control of nature. We're subject to it, basically.
Yeah, yeah, I
And
think that's Jeff Goldblum, yeah.
yeah, and I love this idea and I agree, but not with dinosaurs. Because dinosaurs are just creatures and we have tanks and rocket launchers and machine guns and
Mhm.
all kinds of like nerve gas and whatever. They're not a threat
Yeah.
if they if you know it's so it's just it diminishes and also it diminishes the authenticity of the creatures when they just attack because
Yes.
it's just like any animal. They get freaked out. Maybe they attack because they're freaked out. Otherwise, they fly away or run away
Right,
or whatever. It's
right,
not like, well, I'm just gonna chomp the neck of every person that comes towards me and then leave them. You
right.
know. So I know there's some difference
Well,
with the genetic.
yeah.
Oh, it's hunting for sport, and some of the things they do later. But
Well, and I think that works, but again, when you limit it,
yeah,
I mean, it harkens back to what we were just talking about with Lord of the Rings. Like, I'm fine with original characters when they're limited, or a character that stands in for the audience when it's limited. Again, here you have to like limit some of that. You can't just like apply it to every creature because then it doesn't feel like a threat anymore. It's like
right.
everybody has it. It's whatever. It's just commonplace now. Um, so yeah, so I mean, some of those things just feel the effect feels diminished when you use it too often and too
Yep.
liberally. Um, like you said, a majority of these dinosaurs as animals would be hunting for food, reacting to immediate present threats, wouldn't just go hunting around just, oh, you're kind of near me. I kind of don't
Yeah.
like it. Gotcha. Um,
Hmm.
Also, these animals sometimes seem to be taking on things that are larger than themselves, which
Yeah.
like when you were talking about the plane sequence, I was just like, "Really? I don't feel this." I feel like, they would be taking on maybe like a tiny private plane, one of those little puddle hoppery kind of things.
Hmm.
That feels, scary. You don't feel very protected. This plane was like, I don't know, it was like older but still sort of somehow military issue kind of
Some
thing.
sort of cargo carrier. Yeah.
Yeah, seemed a little bit sturdier, a little bit bigger, and it just felt unrealistic that this would be happening. So yeah.
The pterodons would just fly next to it. They just like form up, probably. It wouldn't
Well,
be
like
like,
I mean, we were treated to that at the end of, the original
yeah,
Jurassic Park
exactly.
where they're just
Right.
like, "Cool,"
Yeah. And that's
you know,
the idea we
glide
get
along the
is,
water with
it
us. Yeah.
is it more likely, even there's some, like, okay, we're making them monsters, but yeah, it's much more limited, you
Right.
know, and you can imagine some things liking to stalk their prey, and that kind of thing. But I think of the first Jurassic World, the pterodons get out and they're all just like going and picking up people and all stuff. It's like, are you kidding me? They go look for some fish.
Right.
Like avoid all this noise.
Right.
So
Or they'd, I mean, I don't know, like hunt in a pack or something. Like 5 of them would, take like a small person and, carry
yeah,
him off. Maybe, you know what I mean? Like,
take the
y-
children. Yeah,
yeah, I mean, sadly,
something. Yeah, yeah,
but that's even more plausible than, I
yeah,
just remember like the babysitter chick who looks after the kids in that, and she's just like suddenly carried away by one of them. She's like a
yeah.
grown ass adult,
So what are you
way
gonna do with that
larger,
person? Yeah,
and then the pterodon just like drops her, and you're like, okay, good.
yeah.
I mean, that was for
Just
what?
that he just was a malicious animal and wanted to kill a person. That's what
Right.
it is.
Wanted to
So
feed his buddy in the sea
yeah,
there. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. That's what it was. Ah, delivery. Yep.
Delivery service. Uber
Snack.
Dino Uber.
Yeah.
Uber
Yep.
Eats.
Mhm. All right. Well, no trailer
Yeah.
for this yet, but I wouldn't be surprised if we got one during the Super Bowl or something like that.
Sure.
Obi-Wan Kenobi series coming
Mhm.
soon. It's coming this May, end of May.
Mhm.
So we have a poster revealed for it.
Mhm.
That's about it. So basically dropped after the Book of Boba Fett wrapped up.
Yes.
So
Yeah, I mean, kudos on keeping that quiet, I guess. Um,
yeah.
it feels very soon for yet another Star Wars property. Um, I don't know whether to be excited or not, that they've kept this so under wraps. Um, but kudos for doing it because I had no clue.
Yeah. I don't think it's going to be very long, so it probably didn't take them too long to film. I think it's been one of the shorter ones, and yeah, I'm not going to watch it, so you have to let me know how it is.
Sure.
But um, okay, one desert planet to another potentially desert desolate planet. We're going to Raised by Wolves.
Ooh.
Um, as you mentioned in your tweet there, we talked Ridley Scott everything last week. So that was in the name of this
Mhm.
show coming back for season 2.
Mhm.
So we're gonna get spoilery. Um, season 2, episodes 1 and 2. Now I know there's a third episode out. We'll just be talking about the first two thus
Mhm.
far.
Yep.
Um, I think we both agreed that at the end of season 1, things were getting a little
Weird.
iffy. Yes, they're
Mhm.
getting stranger. Things were happening fast. Like I'm a little confused here.
Mhm.
Now, when this started, after not long, I was like, I think that I would have been more okay with the end of season 1 if I had was able to go right into this
Mhm.
because some things started to make more sense to
Mhm.
me. How about you? What do you think of the opening here of season 2 here?
Yeah, it was a little frenetic at first, but like you said, I think if we'd been able to transition into it quicker from season 1, the end of season 1 might not have seemed so weird. I think there were still weird elements. I'm still
Mhm.
very not convinced about this snake thing
Okay.
and what is going on with it. It's still very strange to me.
It's all part of Soul's plan, if you ask me.
It's the sword that Soul wants you to use for the prophecy.
Isn't that the way that religious prophecy goes? I mean, you just like, well, I saw a bird and
Ugh.
I
Well, that's the
think,
way, I mean, any prophecy could go, I
yeah,
saw
right.
I saw a
It's just
bird or
like
a
we just
stone
try
or
to
yeah.
interpret whatever we can,
Yeah.
was like that our minds work
The I
up.
mean, the episodes do present a pretty good job of saying, really people wanna believe, so they make anything into, what they want it to. Because obviously Marcus is talking about this prophecy and pulls out, like, a little penknife that he picks off of Mother, and he's like, "Is
Yeah.
this the sword?" And then, 20 minutes later,
It's a
the chick
sword
he's
for
like,
ants.
"It's a home for tiny people." Um, and then 20 minutes later, the new woman that he's found, is talking about the flying snake thing as the sword. So it's like really, kind of points out the, you know, I don't know, very stretchy nature of prophecy and how it can be molded to fit, your
Yeah.
reality and what you want it to. So
Yep. So looking at
yeah, that
episode
was a big
1.
jump ahead. Obviously, I was like
No,
in
yeah.
into two, but I just wanted to overall comment. I feel like the parts with
Yeah.
the flying snake creature really still do take me out of the show a little bit. I feel like I'm so
Okay.
grounded in this world and in the relationships that, mother and father are building with the children, now with the collective that we're being introduced to. Uh, I really feel that some of the most interesting things are happening at this very granular level, and I just get kind of ripped out of those um whenever we deal with this snake monster
Yeah.
thing.
I know what you mean because the despite its sort of um high science fiction way in the future technology beyond our you know uh even close to our
Mhm.
possibilities at this point, it feels quite real and they focus on the characters and dealing with humanity and how religion works and doesn't work and all this stuff, that everything does feel real. So we're about the characters. And so when you do take something, I think one, it does allow for something that's a little more fantastical because you can
Yeah.
feel grounded in so many other ways. I also get what you're saying where it can feel out of place. Um, because for me, like when I can't think of his name right now. New praise soul guy. He is
Oh, yeah, yeah.
I should write
The
down their
tattoo
names.
face guy. Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, when his ship is sinking then he like kind of grapple shots himself off of it with this like sort of energy grapple
Oh,
beam.
Marcus.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Marcus.
our
And so he's
Mithraic
like
guy.
kind
Yeah,
of
yeah,
pulling the ship for a while,
yeah.
and then
Oof,
he
yeah.
just like it's like okay. I
That
mean,
was some
all
rough
this other
effects.
technology, I can see this being possible, but I don't know that I bought that happening right there. So or the way
That's
it was
so funny,
done
because I had trouble with that too, and it was really just that last portion. I bought
with a
the
cut.
grapple hook. Yeah, that, like, jump cut where he, is,
Yeah,
like, pulling himself or pulling the ship and therefore pulling himself, I bought, and then suddenly, like, the ship was too far gone in the acid water, and he just, like, skip hopped over to
yeah,
get to the rock, and it really seemed like the ship was a fair distance yet from
yeah.
any sort of shore. That's terrible. Yeah.
Because it was like what I imagine is they shot it and they're like, okay, if we do this and show him flying through the air, essentially, it's going to look silly. It's kind of like you have to be careful with if you make Wonder Woman 1984 and you have Wonder Woman running down the street, it can look silly. You got
Yes.
to manage these things.
Yes.
Um, and so they like, well, we're not going to do that. We're not going to show that part. So we'll show how it starts and how it ends. But what it ends up feeling like then is amateur or someone with a lower budget because you do that
Yes.
all the time.
Oof,
You do it all the
yes.
time where you start a motion and then you cut to the other side that is not part of that at all. It can just kind of fall on the ground.
Mhm.
So that's what it ended up feeling. It felt cheap, you know.
Mhm.
So
I completely agree with that. Yeah. And yeah, it's some of these things that I'm so surprised work so well and some that don't. And, obviously this moment didn't work for both of us. And I'm still working out. I think the visual effects are great on this snake monster thing. I'm just having a hard time working it into feeling like it fits.
yeah, because well, it does feel like where did this come from really? You
Mhm.
know, other than like inspiration from Geiger that, hey, here's a giant penis coming out of a mouth. Like other than that, like how does this fit in to
Right.
the aesthetic and what's happening? And so hopefully the mystery pays off. That's the thing. The mystery has to pay off of
It
what this
does.
giant serpent is.
They're continuing to delay us and give us little tidbits of information. Now we have a bond between it and Campion.
Mhm.
Campion's, trying to say like, "Oh, I feel like it was trying to communicate with me." It obviously tries to
Right.
communicate with Mother. Um, so we're getting something here, but that still doesn't mean I'm convinced of a good payoff because it does often feel so out in left field. And I don't feel
Right.
that way about other things that have been introduced that are, creature like. Um,
Sure.
talking about the
Yeah,
collective,
those
like,
like dogs and stuff.
yeah, talking about the collective, the trust, like the being that is the center of the collective.
The
That
AI.
Yeah,
Mhm.
it's AI but organic, but it doesn't feel, I don't know, it doesn't feel like it doesn't belong there. It feels somebody designed something that feels very part of this world to me. And I
Mhm.
think it could have been, the other way. I think it could have been designed very oddly, um, where it would misfit. But yeah, so it's just hard for me. I feel like I'm
Mhm.
dwelling on it a lot, but I can't help it because it is the thing that takes me out so often.
Sure. Well, we should talk about the AI about the
Yeah.
trust because we kind of almost start there, and we get to
Mhm.
find out that both Mother and the trust were both made by Campion, but the original
The
Camp.
original OG.
Yeah. So they're like siblings in a way, and she's
Mhm.
familiar with. So she's familiar and mentions the quantum six, like the
Mhm.
unfallible quantum six or something like that.
Yes.
So that's very interesting.
Yeah,
And
definitely
they
interested
said
to
in
hear
the
about that.
yeah. So where's that come into play? And you wrote in your comments about kind of like the Westworld computer. It
Yeah,
definitely is
right?
that sort of thing. That the idea that humans are not in a space. So I I love this show like Westworld because of all these fun questions it brings up.
Mhm.
And so it's kind of this idea that if we're atheists and we don't have something else to look to for order and guidance, what do we look to? And if
Mhm.
we think that at the state that humans are too fallible, doesn't it make sense to create something that is calculating and logical, because that's always the striving element there. It's, so it's
Mhm.
that battle of theology versus and faith versus logic. So the
Mhm.
ultimate logic machine is literally a logic machine, an AI.
Mhm.
But how does that end up actually working out for something that is so emotion driven and feelings driven and that kind of thing as a human is?
Yeah, yeah. Um, and I think one of the interesting things that the show brings up is even the question of how we define atheism, because you know, Campion and Paul are talking to each other, and Paul is saying something, and he's like, "Well, you can't understand. You don't believe in anything." And sorry, I said Paul was telling Campion this. I hope in the right order. Paul was saying that to Campion, and Campion comes back with, "Well, no, I'm not an atheist because
Not right,
I do believe in something. I just don't
right,
believe the same story
in
that you do." And it was very
right.
interesting because it's like, is atheism really just like the total lack of belief in anything? I mean, that seems so illogical, you know.
I was having this conversation with some people last week, and it was, it's like the idea of being an atheist is not having a belief in an organized religion,
Right.
was how they framed it. So that's kind of specific. That's
Right.
not saying that
You
you
don't believe in
don't believe
anything.
in a higher power, or you name it, whatever, you know. Um, yeah. So I don't know if that's really the proper definition. But to me that kind of makes sense.
Right, and it's what I've thought of, but this show obviously kind of takes it in a little bit different direction. And the characters we're talking about are children, so sometimes children, no matter what age, can have a little bit more simplistic viewpoints and understandings. Where
Right.
Campion's saying like, "Well, I'm not an atheist because I believe in something." Could be wrong, but it's an interesting point for the show to bring up as, these are the atheists. Well, what do we think atheist means? What does Campion think it means? How is that going to be problematic, potentially down the line in the show if Campion learns, well, just because I believe in things doesn't mean I'm not still an atheist, or maybe it doesn't. Maybe it's
Right.
can't be classified as an atheist.
What I had pointed out to me now was that silly, I never thought of it.
Mm.
Every time you say like atheist, you're saying atheist.
Yeah.
Kind of like contradictory to what it is. I mean, I understand it's more like asexual and you're
Yes,
but it's still and from in
because
another
you don't say
sense.
asexual.
Yeah. So
But yes, it
um
it it is very funny that that's
yeah.
kind of the way, just grammatically, that works out.
Hmm. Um so speaking of Campion in this moment, might as well use that to
Mm.
talk about how Mother is clearly setting up conflict between the two of them going forward. Because at first there is a little like probably some sort of weird thing with, well, this is my mother, but she's going to have another child, and then the child's dead. He tries to give sympathy. It's like, oh, it's fine, no worries, it's okay. But how she is so set on Campion taking the torch from the system, from
The
the we
trust.
were just talking about, yeah, the trust, when it
Yeah, it
decides to
took me a minute to
hand it over.
realize what the trust was, that was, like, the name for the AI there. I thought perhaps it was like an actual trust, a group of
Mm,
people, and then it took
right,
me a minute to realize, no, 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 like, this is all AI run.
right. So I don't know, I think that
Yeah.
because immediately she's like, he's gonna run it, he's, the perfect atheist society we're gonna have here. It's all this like dreamy, wishy-washy stuff yet. And
Mhm.
then quickly we see like the darker side of it, and then on top of it, Campion proclaiming that he's not an atheist. So
Mhm.
I don't know. Thought that was interesting. And um,
Yeah, I
mother
mean,
is, yeah. Go ahead.
oh, I was just gonna say it like you said, it clearly sets up conflict, um, not only between Campion and, the other members of her family that she's created here, but also between Campion and the Trust, I imagine,
Yeah.
because of course, like we're being thrown hints, subtle and not subtle, that the Trust is not going to be giving up its power. That
Right.
it's not going to be ever handing the torch off to humans because it will never, ironically, trust that humans can
Yeah.
take care of themselves. So she's setting up a lot of conflicts here with her hard push for Campion to take over the collective.
Yep. I I I wrote somewhere at some point. It's like, okay, yeah, when it hands over control,
Yeah.
that's you keep thinking that.
Yeah.
You just know that's not going to happen. And why would it? Like a perfect machine that's calculating things based solely on what
Mhm.
it deems is what's the prime directive? If it's to
Mhm.
have the least loss of life of members of the collective, well, there could be a lot to that.
Mhm.
Um, you know, and it's the machine is never going to make the decision that a hero has to at the end of something where it's okay, save the person in distress, love of your life, or save the world. And then
Mhm.
the hero chooses to save the love of their life and somehow manages to save the world too.
Mhm.
The AI is going to choose to save the world,
Mhm.
period. So it's yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I mean, I had several different thoughts, like, very very different reactions. I love this kind of stuff where you bring up these like hypotheticals, like how would a human respond, how would an AI respond. Um, so my first response um was, about the Trust ever giving up power. I feel like the first couple of episodes of the show really set up the fact that no one in the current collective is really worthy of giving that power to.
Right.
When mother and father and their band of children arrive and they're all like, "Oh, check out these people."
Yeah.
And
These are
Sue,
what we should aspire to be. Yeah.
right, even Sue is like, "Well, the people who survive the end of the world aren't exactly the greatest
Yeah.
people." So we're very much introduced right away to the concept that like nobody here is really worthy of taking over for the Trust. Kind of feels like the Trust knows that, but is that kind of setting us up for, okay, well, only Campion maybe could be that person, and how is that going to go? Because since
Yep.
there's nobody else here, we don't have to worry about kind of other contenders. We really just have to worry about the Trust versus Campion versus, by extension, Mother. um so that was kind of my immediate thought. um Another thought that I had was, you know, really, we saw this so much in the first season, and now we're really, I feel like, seeing it on an accelerated rate in the first two episodes. Mother and father are changing, and they are
Yeah.
becoming more human and having more pronounced human traits.
Yeah.
Like guilt and shame, hiding things, lying to themselves, lying to other people,
Yeah.
jealousy, blackmail. I mean, so clearly we're seeing that AI can evolve and they could be, taking on those, what we call like hero choices, saving the people they love versus saving the world because they're not so cold and detached. I don't think the Trust is ever going to get to that
Right.
level. It doesn't seem capable, perhaps because it doesn't look human, so I don't believe that it can, take on human characteristics where
Sure.
for mother and father, they look like people, so it's easier for me to believe that. I don't know. But it's it's again one of those interesting things that, Westworld explores, we're exploring here too. What's the line between AI and human? How do
Hmm.
we how do we divide and what happens when the lines start to get crossed, blended, mixed, you know.
Yeah, and like, so you say in Westworld they explore this. It's is this realistic at all? I mean, so obviously the most simple form, machine learning, per the name, learns after repeated trial and error, fed more data, all that stuff like that. And AI is able to do this as well and learn. But is it going to learn is it going to learn the value of human emotion? Like, is that something that would be learned by something that
Mhm.
doesn't feel? Because I mean, we feel because of chemicals that fire off and go to our brain and make us react in weird ways. Machines don't have that element. Like, what is going to propel them to learn to have a more animalistic side of the brain when all they've got is, you know, cerebral function? All they've got is calculation. I don't, I just don't know if this leap, because it's fun to explore because it makes us talk about humanity.
Right.
But is it feasible at all?
Well, yeah, I mean, you raise a very good question. Um, certainly we would have to know more, I think, in this world about AI construction. Perhaps the answer lies in quantum 6, whatever that might
Yeah.
be, whatever we could unpack around that mystery. Um, the show seems to suggest that um through the pregnancy and subsequent birth of Snake Thing, which is some sort of biotech, that there's some capacity for mixing there.
Yeah.
You know
Right.
what I mean? Like something
It's like
stronger than,
Battlestar.
yeah,
Yeah.
something stronger than just like we created a humanoid AI or humanoid service, you know, drone, bot, whatever, machine. It seems to suggest that there's a way to pair those. So I think the show makes a lot of leaps in that way that suggests that this can be done without explaining precisely the technology, but perhaps
Mhm.
in this season we're going to be getting those explanations.
Yeah. I think it's maybe just a thing that's so far, it's so well done now. The assume
Like
audiences
Westworld
will,
is the base kind of thing.
yeah, they assume
Yeah,
that the people
we
are going to
accept
go
it.
along for this ride. Yeah.
Mhm.
So we got to write something, Andrea, that
Mhm.
more precisely explores
Right.
this. Um. So let's see. Yeah, we've got the whole community here.
Mhm.
Pretty interesting how that's set up. New system. We see immediately how some people are like, yeah, I'm perfectly good taking orders from the trust, serving the collective, and other people are like, aren't you tired of that? Like, do you want to make a decision for yourself for once? So then the irony is that this person leaves and
Ugh,
is sold on the religion based on you get to be you and make your own choices.
which is
So
which is
it's a
hilarious
complete
because you don't.
well, I mean, but it's for a lot of things, it depends on your religious leader. Now, ultimately, then it's not your choice because your leader is granting you the ability of the autonomy.
Exactly.
But in this atheist society, living free, living logically, you definitely aren't. So the absence of an organized religion based on a higher power is not granting you the freedoms you may have
Yeah.
pursued.
Yeah, what I thought was really funny in the way, and by funny I mean, ironic, interesting, a little bit, giving me a wry chuckle here, is pitting these two kind of belief systems, and they are belief systems, no matter what you say
Hmm.
about, atheism. it's, perhaps not a belief in a higher god or a higher, power that you can't define and name like you can in AI. But it's still certainly a belief system because you believe in this
Yep.
technology and you believe in this way of life. So these two belief systems are pitted against one another. Um, and in either course, the followers don't get any sort of real freedoms,
Right.
and they're not free from being told what to do or what to think, because
Right.
the moment this refugee from the collective escapes and finds Marcus and is rescued, Marcus begins telling him how to think. He's couching it in, you can choose to be you. I want you to be what soul created you to be. But he's
Yep.
nevertheless telling him how to think, because you need to think in terms of soul gave you this and soul gave you that, and you're free to do with these gifts what you will, but just you need to remember that soul gave them to you. So in a way, he's like offering freedom, and he's actually not. He's actually offering
Yeah.
just a different belief system, but couched in terms of you get to decide. But it's made very
Yep.
clear that he doesn't. So,
Yep. Yeah. It's kind of like, if you're going to be part of the commune, then you have to you're f- do what we say, and then you're free.
hmm
So it's not really free. And then but it relies more on you believing in the cause. So if you believe in the cause, if you
yeah,
believe in the structure, you believe in the trust, then you kind of are free because you believe in it. So you know what you're told to do makes sense. Of course you'd say yes because
hmm
you believe in it. And so,
right.
yeah, the kind of warm, wishy-washy way that we're getting on the other side of things is more appealing. And I think I don't know if you caught this. I only understood it when I saw the end credit stuff where they talked about it. That people are drawn to. I keep blanking his name.
Marcus?
Um, Marcus. People are drawn to him because his former followers fed him mother's eyes and they're radioactive. And so the odd energy that people are feeling when next to
Yes, I
him
see
is
soul's energy
literally a
inside you.
radiation.
Yeah.
And that's what's making all the veins and all the stuff. And
Yes.
because I was
Yes.
like, why did they
Oh my
shove the
god.
eyes in his mouth? And I'm sure they didn't think of it. They're just like, take this, choke on that.
Yeah.
But then the effect of it is like he's got part of mother in him now, and
Right.
this is creating this magnetism, literally. Uh,
That that's so interesting to me, because one of the most, fascinating things, little tidbits that we got, I think, in these episodes were about like the voices that people were hearing, and it like Mother and Paul, and Sue discovers that nope, there's actually a signal. There's a concrete reason for this. It can't
yeah,
penetrate through to where we are right now, but where we were before, you were hearing a signal. So it's these kinds of like things like, oh, you were hearing a signal, but only apparently certain people were hearing it, picking up on the frequency. That's interesting to me. Like, where's that coming from? What does that mean? You know, Now you're saying like
yeah.
things like this, like Marcus has part of mother inside him. It's like this kind of radioactive energy, or this, I don't know if it's radioactive, I guess, but
They
this
call it
energy.
radioactive. That's the words they
Okay.
use. It's like,
Okay.
yeah,
So yeah, so he has this energy that's like literally drawing people, like, his new partner is like, oh, I sense,
they
I
feel weird
feel,
around him.
yeah.
Yeah,
So these kinds of things, these kind of like the unintended or side effects of technology and what this does and how this affects people, this is very interesting to me.
yeah. And how this they have it lining up so well that it seems like fate. And so I'm always waiting for the
Mhm.
moments when it's like, oh, we get the real explanation because when you look back at these things, they do have it structured in a way that's like, oh, this all seems like it's for a reason. It's all for a
Mhm.
purpose. Now they come to this place, to this atheist camp, and they're welcomed in because mother knows, the AI that runs it. And she also took down the ship full of I wrote down the
Mithraic.
religion. Yeah, Mithraic. And then the the voices basically led her to, giving birth to this snake, and like just all these pieces that seem like, because then they end up finding boxes that have logos from the religious text, and
Mhm.
walls in the caves. It's just like, they really do sell the idea that this is fated.
Yes.
And is everyone just playing their role in Soul's scheme, or
Or the
are we gonna
trust.
just, yeah, right, I don't know. I I I
I
I
mean,
think that,
I'm probably projecting a bit of Westworld into that just because, in that it's like literally this machine that orders everybody's lives,
mm,
So I
mhm,
mean, there's still obviously the possibility that that's something to play out here too.
yep,
But
yeah.
yeah,
No,
obviously Soul too,
mhm.
because we
I
we're
see this
so
as
vague
like,
and undefined about what exactly soul is.
yeah. And how many times have we seen what appears like miracles? The
Mhm.
putting the hand in the thing, and then there's one person starts on fire, another person doesn't, or the voices telling people that are very accurate things. How would anyone know this?
Yes.
Um, I don't know. I at first we thought maybe the trust is soul, and this is, but then yeah, if the signal's coming from someplace else,
Yeah, what
I
else
don't
is
know.
that? I mean,
I see all these as D&D quests. It's like a video
mhm.
game lining up in my head. Okay, well, we can gain XP by gathering food, and then so that's the menial tasks for the village. And then we can go out and hunt a monster, kill the snake. But
Yep.
then there's this big overarching thing where, which society we going to side with, and there's this
Yes.
signal way out, we got a quest for. So it's
Yes.
perfectly set up to
I love it.
run a
Speaking of
but
food, did you not every time somebody ate like a berry, were you not like, "People, you don't
yes,
know
I
that
I
this
wrote a
is
couple.
safe?"
Yeah, I know. I'm like, have you seen no other science? I don't know. Just reality. Like, you don't just take a
Right?
random piece of something off
And
of a
just
tree and decide to eat it when you're not
right,
starving to death.
right. Nobody tests it out at all, like, nobody takes tiny little bites, they're just, like, ripping it open, and
Chomp. Well,
every
that's good.
time I just expected somebody to just,
Yeah.
like
I want the parody version. I want this being done. It's like someone's eating, and oh, this is great. And all the kids just drop dead. Oh, I guess
Yes.
this show's over, whatever.
Oh,
Cause they all just,
shoot.
yeah. And then some of it look gross.
Respawn
Like the things they,
elsewhere.
yeah. The, like, pustule
Jelly
kind of
things.
things that,
Yeah.
yeah, that didn't look good at all.
Yeah.
So,
Well, and I just
um,
I think I'm so trained by so many, pop culture references and stories and different scenarios to not trust anything that seems like paradise. I just,
yeah,
when you get somewhere that seems
right.
like lush and verdant and oh, how beautiful the garden, there's always poison. And I mean, I
Yeah,
know it harkens back obviously biblically. But
yeah.
it's such a recurring theme in pop culture that I felt like I was just so trained in that yeah, the first time they grabbed me
But
fruit, I was like, "Ah!"
I think biblically that harkens back to reality. Like,
Well, right, yeah.
nothing is perfect. It's just the name of the game. Like, um,
Right, and it's
and
just like
some,
the garden is usually like the strongest collective symbol, you know,
yeah,
that
right.
we recognize. It's just such like an old story that everybody knows, whether you've, I think, been part of a religion or not.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure there are people, peasants that were ushered into someone's palace at some point. They're the
Mhm.
only ones with a maintained garden and fruits that would no one could ever possibly afford or have access to. And one of them eats one, and the guy next to him learns
Mm.
what happens when you do that. Your
Mhm.
hands are gone.
Yeah.
Your tongue is out, whatever it
Peace.
is, like, terrible thing. Life lesson. Gardens, they belong to someone else. I don't have
Exactly.
access,
Don't pluck the fruit, man.
Yep. So, on a religious topic, I guess this is something we could
Sure.
probably talk about throughout the season. But the thing I always discuss or grapple with is, do humans by and large need not necessarily an organized religion, but a religion? They need something that directs them, something to believe in that is greater than they are. And so if it's not a thing in the sky, if it's not a deity from above, then it's something else. So in this case, in the show, it's the AI,
Mhm.
it's the trust, But this can be looked at anywhere in reality. It's always the debate of Christians for sure, or whatever. Is like, well, if
Mhm.
you don't have this thing, if you don't have these rules to life, if you don't feel like you're watched over, if you don't have this something that's higher than you, then you'll, you know, in their eyes, worship false idols, but
Mhm.
whatever it may be. Think I saw a meme or a cartoon recently talking about how someone's laughing. Oh, how, yeah, it's so silly that you believe in these fairy tale things from a ancient textbook or wherever.
Mhm.
Meanwhile, the person is wearing like a Marvel cap and like DC everything or like Disney everything, and it's like, well, we all have our gods, and it was kind of so it's just like, I mean, it's a trivial example or whatever, but how do you fall on this? Like, can people just exist just on rational thought and scientific evidence, or will humans always fall prey to needing something higher?
I personally would say no. I don't think that's always the case because I mean, we have the term atheism for a reason. And I personally think there are many different kinds of atheism. Just because you've said, I don't believe in an organized religion doesn't mean that there's one thing that you would turn to perhaps above all others. I think there are a multiplicity of things that you can believe in. Um and not necessarily like hold, something like an AI or like something like, you know, I don't know, the concept of scientific knowledge even, and just say like that's the thing. I think there are a multiplicity of things that you can construct and weave into like your own ideology and feel safe and happy existing without the one thing.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I want to agree. I think that it's a good goal for humanity. I just ultimately see that so often people fall prey to not having a purpose, and so something like religion, that no matter who you are, gives you purpose.
Mhm.
You are God's creation. You are God's child. You are, um, you have a destiny. You're fated to do this thing, and He loves you no matter what happens. That kind of thing. Um, and so someone that, especially a youth or someone young or whatever, they haven't done much of their lives yet or whatever, or maybe they fall upon hard times and all these things,
Mhm.
they don't have a purpose. And I think the like one of the most important things for the function of anyone is purpose. Now
Mhm.
you've created purpose for yourself. Like, you have a kid, so obviously now like you have ultimate purpose.
Mhm.
But a lot of people don't, or they don't. I mean, what if they don't see it that way or whatever?
Or they can't,
People
yeah.
need purpose. And so if they don't have purpose from in their lives, and they don't have purpose from a higher power, they have to seek purpose from something else.
Mhm.
They have to find purpose, because otherwise you're miserable. You will live a shallow, terrible life if you do not feel that you have purpose. So it
Mhm.
drives people into depression.
Mhm.
People hate their jobs. I hate my job. Sucks. So they don't feel like they have purpose there. They don't feel like they're doing something important. Or you wouldn't hate your job so much because you feel you're contributing to something valuable to society.
Mhm.
Um, I don't know. I just think I'm an atheist, but I feel like it's a problem. I always talk about how, would I pose the question to people, would the world be a better place if just like most of America was actually practicing Christians? Even though I don't think it's true or right or
Mhm.
correct in any way? Um, will the are the good lessons we decide to choose good enough? And
Mhm.
is the purpose given good enough to create a better society, even if it's based on a lie?
Mhm.
And I don't mean to offend any like devout religious people watching or anything like that.
Yeah.
Perfectly, I'd love for you to write in. I love talking about it. So
Mhm. Well, it's I mean, yeah, it's obviously interesting for me living in a household where, I mean, Chris isn't obviously like I would say super religious, though.
not a
Obviously,
Bible
that's a
thumper.
right. I mean, it's a very indefinable term, and everybody's
Right.
level can be different about what they consider super religious. But obviously, he is a Lutheran pastor's son and grew up in the religious community. Has been baptized and things like that. And I know there's a degree of belief there, though I've never sat down and interrogated him on tell me point by point.
Yeah,
you
right.
know but it is different for me because I did not grow up with organized religion, even though both of my parents are baptized. They chose, for a number of reasons, not to baptize me. Some of it I think consciously and some of it not. And so therefore I didn't belong to organized religion, so I grew up kind of outside of that. I grew up with a healthy skepticism, I think, of the concept, and have kept that into adulthood. So it's a very interesting thing to balance in my own house. Um
Yep.
and then now with our child, obviously that's a big
Right.
question about where does that go? Where do our belief systems go when they're in opposition to one another? How can we work that out?
Yep. Yep. Well, I have all sorts of unsolicited advice I could give, but I won't. Uh, but yeah, no, it's definitely um, it's tricky. I mean,
Mhm.
I know Ashley and I had talked about that before. I remember pretty heated conversation. The four of us walking
Mhm.
back from Robert Street or whatever one day.
Yeah.
Yes, it's good.
Yeah, I
So,
mean, it's obviously religion is something that is personal. It's not just a concept. It's not just like a governing concept by which you intellectually live your life. It's a belief system. So beliefs, therefore, by their very nature, their very connotation, their context, are something you feel strongly. You know, so there,
mhm.
yeah, it's not something that you can often argue dispassionately about, which is one
Yeah,
of the tricky things. Of course, for me, in that arena, I'm probably, even though I'm an emotional person, I'm probably the most logical I'll ever be because I don't have that. I
right.
believe in what I believe in, but it's not the same structure. It's not the same thing.
Yeah. Well, because it's inherently to I would say to a non-believer odd to have much that's faith-based.
Mhm.
The idea of faith is literally to take something without evidence,
Mhm.
which seems so wrong. Now, we take a lot of things on faith on a daily basis, but they're
Well,
not things that necessarily change our lives.
mhm.
And if they were to, like, if, hey, no, you need to change the way you live your life and have faith because
Mhm.
that's a different thing than having faith that, yeah. But even when I think of things, I'm trying to think of an example. I'm like, well, but it's because I have past experience, because I have evidence to go to support this.
Well, and oftentimes where I find myself, in the finding some footing in kind of a debate or a discussion or a conversation about religion, is the fact that I actually find the idea of faith very logical.
Okay.
That I find the idea that, I am a person of faith. Okay, I have faith in a higher being or a higher purpose. I get that concept. I don't generally get the concept of naming it, because to me the idea of faith is that you don't know but you believe anyway. But the idea of organized religion is saying, "Oh, but we know, you know, the story of God, the story of Jesus, in terms of
Right.
Christianity. Of course in other religions there are other names, other gods, other stories.
Right.
So the idea to me of faith being something you believe in without knowing it, and then the idea of organized religion saying, "Oh, we know all these things," to me that's antithetical. You can't have
Sure.
faith in something you don't know about if you, on the other hand, say, "Well, we know all about it." So that's kind of where I get tripped up sometimes in the idea of structured religion.
Mhm. Yeah.
And it's something I've
But
never
it's
quite
still
gotten past in terms
but
of,
it's but if you say, "Well, I know that there's the," if you phrase it in the way that, well, you're saying you know that this is God and this is Jesus and this will happen, someone should respond to saying, "Well, I don't know that. I have, but I choose to have faith."
mhm. And
So, I
that to
mean,
me makes more sense. It's just the idea of, religion is that it's named, something is named. Like to me, the very basis of the building block is like how could you even know a name? Like
right.
how could you say for certain again, when you say somebody says like, "Well, I have faith that this is God or something," and my first immediate reaction is to say, how do you know it's not Allah? How do you know it's not
Well,
Buddha?
but
How
that's
do you
just a
know it's
different
not Shiva the
translation of the
Secretary?
same.
How do you know
I
it's
mean,
not Zeus and all of his 1,200, fellow gods and goddesses?
see, but that I would argue is a little different because Zeus is a specific deity.
Mhm.
God is the term for the omnipresent being. So Allah is just the a different language's term for an ever present omnipresent being,
Mhm.
you know? So I would get that for sure with like a Zeus or something because that is giving a name to a god. It gets more complicated
Mhm.
it's it's all encompassing. We gotta shove all these
Yeah.
gods into one. But
Yeah. So, yeah, it's a very interesting, concept to the idea of faith and the concept of knowing. And
right.
part of that, here, obviously bringing it kind of back around to Raised by Wolves. After a very interesting, I mean, obviously to me anyway, side
hmm
tangent there, is yeah, it's you know setting up what these people believe are two different systems, but us as the viewer are kind of getting the clue in that they're not all that different. It's just the thing you choose to put your belief into.
Yep. And I appreciate a show like this that because we're able to look at this dispassionately because it's not anything that's from Earth or whatever, and so it's a great setup. And I wish more shows were competent enough to do this because whatever they want to teach you or instruct or inform or make you ask questions of or whatever, they're not hitting you over the head with it.
Hmm.
It's the glory of science fiction and fantasy that you can have and make these really complicated discussions go on in your head,
Hmm.
and you can do it dispassionately because you're not bound to it emotionally.
Right.
And that's the kind of thing that Hollywood really wants. They want to be able to change your mind and make you think what they think. Well, this is a much better way to do it. To to welcome discussions and to have something that's thoughtful and disconnected.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, I would definitely say when you're talking about intellectual concepts, this is the way to go. I mean, obviously, I think some things, some stories are just simply meant to, evoke sympathy, empathy, you know, um,
For
appreciation
something
of the small
specific.
things. Yeah, like um, I don't know, appreciating the relationships that you have. Thinking about like the fact that you're not alone. I think concepts like that are obviously very suited to a movie and something being made in the reality that we know on the earth that we know. But yeah, something
Sure.
like overarching like this, like when you're thinking about belief systems, be they, you know, based in logic and reason, as like, your kind of core guiding principles above all else, or, a faith in a higher power and a higher being as your core. Something like this like you said, is perfect because you can argue it dispassionately because it's not anything literal. It's not anything
Yeah.
real. It's not anything you're already part of or not
Yep.
part of.
Yep. Yep. All right. Well, I'm happy to get into that because I'm sure there'll be more interesting things between these factions and some of that as we move forward. Um, is there some stuff we want to bring up in episode 2 at all, or I mean, we kind of like jumped between everything a little bit. Um, oh, what did I write? It was so awkward. There was a really awkward moment.
Sure.
Um, God, I this is the problem with the stream of conscious, Andrea. You just write it and there's no context. I don't
Yeah, I
know what
know. I've
I
taken to, like, writing longer sentences so I can, like,
Mhm,
or writing, like, keywords for myself so I can remember. Um,
mhm.
was it the apology that the guy had to come
No,
make? Because that was very, like, town cry or medieval, like,
right.
ringing through the streets. It was very funny to me.
No, it's
Um,
something where they're talking about like how I think how terrible androids are or someone died or something. It was a really yeah, it was a really shoot. I don't know.
okay.
That's my fault. I always spend too much time looking up a GIF to represent my present feeling as opposed to like writing down what what it was
Oh,
about.
is it the moment in, when father and the children are collecting things and then that guy walks by and is like, oh, father's like, "Good morning," and the guy is like, "Get out of here." Do you
No.
remember what I'm talking about?
Yeah, yeah. Yeah,
When
because
'cause father's like, "Oh, I feel so happy and safe and warm,
yeah.
and this is everything we need. Morning, my good neighbor." And he's like, basically like,
n-
"F you and your,
Yeah.
religious child who should get the F out of here."
Right.
And
Yep.
it was just like a very it was a very like, "Whoa, whoopsie.
Yep.
Sorry, father." He had some misplaced enthusiasm.
Yeah, I feel
You're
like
right
that's
though
in
when you
the
wrote, "Father's too good for these people," because he is. He's the best.
yeah, I mean, he's been a
And I was very
constant in
upset.
the show.
Yeah, I was very upset when they suggested sacrificing father as bait for the snake monster.
I know,
Get
right?
out of here with that. Nuh-uh.
Yep. Well, fortunately, he's leading the people to be bait. So
Yes.
hopefully he's
Hopefully
better
he's gonna
off
be
here.
fine. Yeah. But
He's not
yeah.
going to smell human and like tasty, so probably.
Well, yeah, which is hilarious because these people obviously don't know that this snake monster was birthed from mother.
Right.
So probably
Yeah.
doesn't have quite the same appetites as like a random beast of the wild.
Yeah.
So,
And what
yeah.
did you I still feel like we need a little more explanation at some point because then mother starts lactating.
Yes!
I'm like
Yes, and I was like
this
trying
is
I sorry.
biology. Wow.
I know. Because and then I was like sitting there trying to figure out like how that would work, like how it was gonna get there,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
Um, yeah, that was very interesting. That she had this like biological, clearly involuntary response.
Yeah.
Um,
It's
yeah, and then they started talking later about the snake monster being like a baby trying to communicate.
mhm.
And,
Yep.
obviously it views Campion as its like brother, which we, the audience, sort of get clued in on, but Campion doesn't know because he's not
Right. Yeah,
aware.
he went right.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's a
Yeah,
lot of
still so many unanswered questions about how this
yep.
is all going to work, and I'm hoping we get to some, maybe not the ultimate, but some big step of a payoff in the next few episodes.
Yep. Yep. Um yeah, I'm just looking if there's something else. Oh, violence is pain, compliance is life.
Mhm.
I love that the atheists almost have more mantra than the theists at this point. So I love
Mhm.
that.
Hatred is pain,
Um
pain is hatred. That was the other one
mhm.
that they spouted, which
Yep.
yeah, they're such like weirdly complex concepts boiled down into these very simple statements that are like, well, I mean, sort of, if you think of it this way, I could see where you're coming from. I'm not really sure what you're meaning here because I have no context. It's
Yeah.
very strange.
Yep. Well, I like all the questions being asked. I
Hmm.
like the conflicts being set up and the relationships, seeing where they're going to go and how they're going to develop. And so I think it's a pretty good start
Yeah.
to season 2.
Yeah, I liked one last thing I want to say is I like the theme that keeps kind of recurring here in these first two episodes about the concept of truth and who has a right to know what. Paul and
Mm,
Campion are having that argument about, you know, you should forgive Sue. She didn't mean to keep things from you. And Paul's like, well, she kept all this stuff from me. And, I'm glad that the voices told me the truth. And Campion's like, well, are you better off? Like, is that really
right.
a good thing? So that was an interesting concept. And then I noted again, um, there was like a concept of, you know, truth and like telling somebody something.
Well, and it's not like that's new because I mean, it's red pill versus blue pill. It's,
Right.
the ignorance is bliss or whatever kind of thing. So, but yeah, I like it being brought up in more ways.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I can't.
Well, there was something else related to that you were talking about. That's
Yeah, and I thought it had to do again. I think Mother
uh,
tried to keep something else from Campion.
well, she was gonna lie about she found the cube, the
Yes,
artifact,
yes,
in to save Campion from looking like a bad friend.
right. But I think she was maybe gonna tell. She was talking about talking about father and telling him, don't tell anybody about the snake monster because I'm gonna kill it and it's gonna be fine. Campion
Hmm.
not knowing about any of this stuff. So yeah, so there's a lot of idea of like, does intent matter when telling someone the truth or keeping the truth from them? Um,
Yeah,
that I just feel like it's going to be playing out in a lot of different dynamics
yeah,
and
and like you
relationships in this
say,
season.
showing how much more emotionality
Hmm.
mother and father seem to be bringing here.
Yes.
That they're falling into these pitfalls
Hmm.
of humanity, of like, yeah, keeping secrets and judging when that's appropriate or not, when you
Right.
think that they seem to preach earlier about honesty being of the utmost, you know
Right.
so
Exactly.
um I'll also say too that you mentioned the acid sea and stuff.
Yeah.
So and one of they showed this in an end credit thing too, behind the scenes. They talked that the acidic nature of the water comes from those whirlpools. They go
Right.
down into the core and are, where there's the magma and the weird stuff, and that's what's
Yep.
turning the water acidic. And I I'm interested in just the structure of this planet. The idea of having holes that would go through the planet, and
Hmm.
that the planet would still maintain a stable atmosphere and all this
Hmm.
stuff seems unlikely. But
Hmm.
maybe I'm just not filled in on the latest physics here, astrophysics. So yeah, but
Yeah. I yeah, I thought it was very interesting. I mean, it's certainly, a way to set this planet apart from Earth. You know what
hmm,
I mean? Like, oh, look at how strange we have acid seas. Again, it's something we sort of buy into without much explanation of
yep,
like you say, there's an explanation here, but we're not exactly being told how that works.
yeah,
You know what I'm saying?
right, hmm,
So, yeah. I
yep,
just had trouble a bit with the I felt inconsistencies of the acid sea.
okay,
Where, they're running for the caves in the second episode and they're touching like part of the wave that comes up. It's tiny, but it's like, the first dribbles of the waves of the tide that's coming in, and they run through it, and nobody's soles of their boots seem to be burned. And then 2 seconds later, the tide really comes in to get the collective
Mhm.
guards that are following them, and then just like acid, eats them away immediately. And I was just like, ah,
All they needed was one shot of one because
smoking
I
shoe.
think
I just needed
yep,
that. That's it.
because I yep, one shot stepping and a singe because I think they didn't do it because we saw that earlier that it does do that.
Right.
But
That
just it should be a reminder that they're cutting this really close because their
yes.
boots are getting singed.
Yes.
So I
The danger
so I
increases for
yeah.
us, on both fronts, and it just provides that extra level of consistency.
Yep. Yep. So all right. Well, that's our very theological discussion of Raised by Wolves season 2 episode 1 and 2.
Mhm.
Hope everybody enjoyed that. If you do, make sure you subscribe and like and share everywhere that you can. Um if you don't, if you're like I'm in school, I'm in the ministry, and you're really upset by what's been said here, that's fine. Go ahead and write in.
Mhm.
Certainly welcome to discuss all kinds of things like that.
Mhm.
And we appreciate the viewership. We're also on Twitter and Facebook. So go ahead and give us a like and follow there. Podcast directories. We're on all kinds of podcast directories. Take your pick. We're on a lot of them. So please leave a review there if you can. Spotify gives you the ability to watch video of us now as well on there. So if you use that platform, but take your pick. And we're a weekly podcast. Thank you to Killing the Flower for our theme song. I think I forgot to thank them last week. What a jerk. So Killing
Your
the
own
Flower, you can find
sister.
I know. You can find them on Instagram, YouTube, and Spotify. So go ahead and give them a listen and check out my new like little occasional morning show where I talk about the latest anime news. Can take a little bit of a load off of things from this show that maybe you want to bring up, but they're not big discussion pieces or something like that. I'll give manga recommendations and that sort of thing. So yeah, and if Andrea watches something that we really want to talk about, maybe we talk about on there, or I have a couple guests here and there, or whatever. So
Mhm.
just subscribe to find out when that's happening. Um, that's about it. Popcast on the Rocks, episode 94 in the can. Thank you very much, Andrea.
Of course. Cheers, everybody.